Harem anime generally follow a familiar formula of relying on one-note designs for its characters that will appeal to the masses, while using fan service and cheap tricks to keep viewers engaged. However, harems can be wholesome and actually have development when the right author dips their toes into the genre. The Quintessential Quintuplets is a wholesome harem anime with its fair share of laughs that's worth recommending to anyone who has any interest or love for the genre, as you'll quickly notice that cheap tricks aren't the selling point with this anime. The relationships between the characters is what makes this a worthwhile show with plenty of chuckles to help set itself apart from the crowd. The story of Quintuplets is fairly interesting for a harem premise. Our main character, Futaro, is an A student, scoring 100s on every test, but his family is in a massive amount of debt. Now, luckily for him, a rich family have recently moved into the city, and the father of said family hires Futaro to tutor his 5 daughters, who all have failing grades and just so happen to be quintuplets that on a physical level are nearly identical past a hairstyle, but emotionally are all unique with their own educational struggles. Futaro gets off on a bad note with one of the sisters, Ichika, before being hired. So after he lands the job and learns who hired him, his task of teaching 5 girls who want nothing to do with him for one reason or another becomes a test of, can he show results to this father and finally be able to pay off their family's debt, or will it be back to square one and cheap lunches in the future? What first caught my eye with this anime is how interactions between the central 6 characters came across as rather amusing. Now typically with a dynamic such as this, I'd expect the 5 girls to fall in love with our main character, and by the end he'll pick one, unless he's poly, as then I guess he can have them all. Which is the end goal to this story, don't get me wrong, as familiar to past harems, they all do fall for him eventually. The main difference here is rather than introduce each of the girls as a trope, instead they are introduced as people with their own quirks that make them who they are, rather than being a copy and paste cutout from past anime. Not to mention, most of the dialogue and interactions between Futaro as well as the other girls leave me laughing a fair amount with how absurd and beautifully executed they are. These girls don't fall into his lap with no effort put in by the man. His determination to help them is what makes them fall for Futaro. Ichika is a glutton. She loves food and is a crybaby. She easily holds grudges, which makes connecting with her a challenge to say the least, as one bad interaction in the past is currently making Futaro's life a living hell despite her needing his help. Her pride to do well herself tends to hold her down when she should just ask for others' assistance, so she tries her hardest to be able to study by herself so she isn't in need of Futaro's help, as at first she thinks of him as a tool who cares for no one but himself, but over time recognizes that he really is giving it his all to help them, even if money is the main driving factor, as unless he sees results in their education, he feels as if he's unworthy of being paid for an unsuccessful job, and his drive to help the sisters and their father is something she respects about him, even if their relationship is rocky on the best of days. Typically when the first girl of a potential harem is introduced, I think, well, she will win and all the effort will go towards her and leave the rest of the cast as being, well, rather shallow. Thankfully, she has an equal amount of spotlight in this first season as the others, helping it feel like a real group and not really just a harem right from the start. Even though she was the first we see, I never felt like she was the main character out of the 5, which makes it a more interesting dynamic as anyone in this cast could truly win in this harem. Nino, who can be viewed as the mother of the family who cooks for the sisters, takes care of them however they need, and is very protective of her siblings. She sees Futaro as someone intruding in their home and wants their safe space to be theirs and to keep the connection they have without each of them fading away and growing up not needing her. At first she seems rather cold and blunt with her sharp tongue, but quickly you see that personality is a defense mechanism to keep her family safe and not let others take advantage of them, be it for their looks, money, or just trying to intrude in their life that she works so hard at protecting. I figured she'd end up as one of the most tropiest of all the girls, as soft girl who plays hard, and it's exactly what we've seen before. But when you see how she's willing to drug Futaro to knock him out, to remove him from her home, to how they explore her sweet side, she feels much different than the initial trope that I laid out for her. Ichika, who is the eldest of the sisters and acts like a leader a fair amount, is a very playful girl who one could say is quite expressive. She enjoys teasing her sisters and Futaro, but has her own dreams and desires that matter to her despite first appearance where you think she wants to do nothing but sleep and slack off as she's a lazy slob. She has a sweet spot for romantic moments that can get to her, but what drives her the most is her passion in life to express her creative abilities in acting. But until she is successful with it, she fears of telling her siblings, as what if she fails and it was all for nothing and they look down on her. She needs to be the successful one that they can all look up to. She starts off as the tease character, but fleshes out into someone someone with grand ambitions in life where trying to balance school, work, and family should be impossible, but you respect the hustle. Yotsuba, the most positive of the sisters and the only one to accept Futaro at the start, is all about good vibes. She is carefree, cheerful, and wants nothing more than a happy life, and the more the merrier in her family, which is why she has no issues with Futaro at the beginning, where the rest want nothing to do with him or his lessons. She is absent-minded, which causes her to forget and procrastinate more than characters like Futaro would like. While being physically talented when it comes to sports, she struggles like the rest in her studies as she easily can be distracted. But because she is such a positive person, she puts in 100% effort to get her siblings to study and work hard, so Futaro's work isn't for nothing. She loves helping people, and when she shows signs of weaknesses, it helps to flesh out her character fairly well. Her overall persona is one of the most charming areas to the show, and when she sacrifices a pastime she loves in favor of sticking to studying, moments like those really highlight her character growth. And lastly, we have the best of the sisters, Miku, who is a fairly timid with a pessimistic attitude that seems rather emotionless, at least at the start. She feels lesser in many ways to her siblings, but because of Futaro showing her that her passion for Japanese history isn't something to be ashamed of, and how far he's willing to go to study up on facts she didn't know so he can teach her and make studying actually entertaining for her, she's the first to open up after shutting him out of her life. You can argue she is the smartest of the sisters, as her main passion is studying and memorizing generals from the Sengoku period, and when it comes to something that she loves, her mind is as sharp as can be, even if some of her other studies she fails at like the rest. Her personality was the most gripping for me immediately, as most of the girls showed very noticeable distaste for Futaro, where she was simpler in her displeasure, being more of a cold shoulder and one-liner kind of girl. What makes her growth the most interesting is because she shows very little emotion, so the moments that light her up are the most gripping, as seeing a faint smile or determination to try harder is quite polar opposite to her normal behaviors. With where she started off to where she ended in the season, you truly feel as if she had the most noticeable changes to her character thanks to Futaro. I also just find her passion with studying the Sengoku period pretty adorable, with how passionate she is with the time period, and how if studying has anything to do with generals, you can be damn sure she'll be first to that lesson. I tend to enjoy quiet characters, but I was pleasantly surprised by how that wasn't her defining quirk, but rather her passions and personal struggles were, which made following her arc and her love building for Futaro really sweet, as she was the first to really fall for him. Each of the sisters starts off with a few quirks to make a fun design, and usually I'd expect that to be that, while a fandom debates who's the best girl of the series. But what surprised me is how this anime felt as if they were all people with their own desires, passions, struggles, and complex feelings they had to overcome, and as each of the girls had their arc to shine, you learned more about them on a personal level without feeling like they're shoehorning in a waifu, but rather this is a real girl with her own struggles and desires in life. Having twins is one thing, but having a batch of quintuplet sisters is another. Some will feel envious of their sister, maybe believing they will be the first to fail as they are the dumbest of the group, say the wrong thing, their hobbies are too weird as their sisters would never do something like that and they would always be more ladylike. The feeling of self-doubt, jealousy, and the love they all have for one another is something that feels genuine and well written. As they grow older, their love for one another doesn't falter, but maybe they grow apart more and more than some may like. So their current living arrangements is truly all that keeps them together, just like they were when they were children. So having a stranger barge into your safe space cause you to feel attacked and also cause you to be stubborn and push back against someone who truly wants nothing more than to just help you. Each of the sisters have a reason for behaving the way that they do. When they open up to Futaro, you feel as if he's earned it. Futaro starts off as a man who entertained me greatly. He had sass and witty lines to back him up that never came across as the typical loner loser main character that you often see in harem animes. And even though he has this well-paying job he can't afford to lose, you can tell he cares for each of the sisters more and more as time goes on, and rather than seeing them as a sex object, he sees them as unique girls who all have distinctive attributes to make them who they are and build up to becoming his friends. Each have a subject they do well in, or at least can pass in. Each can help the other overcome their fault if Futaro can bring out the best in their abilities, as he too was once a poor student in the past. You feel as if, as the anime continues on, more and more, you feel the chemistry between all of them get better and better. You know they all will fall for him by the end, it's a harem, so you expect that. But the reasons for them falling in love actually make sense past him just being some dumb, lucky, bland main character in a harem anime. He actually has a personality, and the way he tries harder and harder each day to help these girls who keep trying to push him away builds unique relationships that you find wholesome. As unlike most harem leads, this main character earned the girls falling for him, and despite being a dick at times, he's generally a good guy who will make you laugh on more than one occasion. And the people he cares for, such as his sister, there's nothing weird there. He's just the best big brother that you can imagine. The comedy is fairly well done 9 times out of 10, as when one of the sisters tries teasing Futaro about what he looks for in a girl, he'll make them finish their homework first, and for each of them that completes the task, he reveals another attribute in his dream girl with the hilarious drum roll he makes with his voice. The punchline is what he looks for in a girl basically is his sister, but the joke is he cares so little about romance and just likes his sister for being sweet and not a pain in the ass like the quintuplets, highlighting that they need to focus more on their studies and less on romance, as with their grades they don't have time for love. Or you have scenes building up to a romantic confession to then just kidding, I wanted to show you that I can lie, since minutes prior he said that they were a bad liar, so Futaro's heart has to grow colder and colder. There's plenty of playful scenes that honestly are quite amusing and at times got a chuckle out of me, and even when they were at their lowest I still found myself smiling at the silliness that they presented. Plenty of wholesome scenes with playful ones that can make you laugh is what a majority of this anime is built on. It's not to say there isn't familiar pandering tricks, as there is a fair amount of fanservice, but in comparison to many series in the genre, it's pretty tame. As unlike most harems, which really its selling point is one-note designs and opie shots, Quintuplets has much more going on, so when lewd scenes do pop up, they don't linger for too long, meaning a scene isn't ruined. They don't overstay their welcome while reminding you that even though a majority of an episode might be funny, eventually one of these girls will be a love interest, and even if Futaro currently isn't interested in them romantically, one day he will be. So having a man not scared by the opposite sex when scenes like these pop up while not being oblivious is a nice change of pace. Characters like Miku typically would stay as the shy, timid, and self-loathing type, and that would be her appeal. But when you dive into what she's passionate about and why she feels lesser than her siblings, you get to know her on a pretty deep level, and when you have someone praising your passion and proving why you have your own talents that her sisters don't, you see characters like Miku open up more and more. Her general aura might stay the same, but she continues to open up as someone feeling more comfortable with who they are while feeling safe with others' company, not needing to shelter away who she is. Harem anime can and should be more than one-note designs with lingering shots highlighting a character's body. The design should be a stepping stone to who they are, as the story continues to flesh them out and give believable reasons for falling for the character in question, providing wholesome and hilarious scenes to watch this growth rather than a dense and unlikable main character, but rather a man who has a personality you respect and enjoy seeing on screen. Makes the growth of a harem feel genuine, which you rarely will hear me say, as nothing feels ham-fisted. The emotional growth has you hooked. As for myself, it's not a story about who will win romantically, but rather how the relationship between all of them will continue to evolve. They start off on the worst possible note imaginable, but the gradual build up to friendship to romance feels well executed. Obviously, they all want to win, but whoever earns the relationship I know I'll come out respecting, because we don't have a character who just cares for people for shallow reasons. The emotional connections matter far more than the physical. Each of the sisters are basically identical physically, which is such a great idea for harem. 5 sisters who on a surface level are all the same, but are unique emotionally, so whoever wins his heart will do so for genuine and romantic reasons, not superficial ones. There's real relationships being formed, and watching 5 sisters grow and develop as a man who first took a job to pay off his debts, learns to appreciate his new batch of friends as he searches for what he truly needs in life is quite entertaining and at times remarkable. I'm a comedy junkie, so if you can find new ways to twist a genre with well thought out comedy, you'll probably hook me. But layer in wholesome scenes to boot, that's just a sweet spot. Often with harem anime, I feel as if the characters are designed from day one to be a love interest for the main character, and then he won't be able to make up his mind, so why not have them all? The quintessential quintuplets from day one felt like a group of strangers who became partners, to friends, to potentially more. There's build-up, reason for the emotions they have, and everything feels earned rather than being a shallow mess, and thankfully every character in the main cast is fantastic to follow. Overall, the visual production to quintuplets gets the job done, with the exaggerated and simple yet noticeable facial reactions being the highlight. These girls have a wide range of emotions, and what sells their feelings the most are the way they adjust their faces and overall body language of each of the sisters. Characters like Miku will have less noticeable reactions, from pouting to a faint smile, where characters such as Ichika can't hide how she feels even if she tries. With how distinct each sister was, I appreciated how unique their reactions to similar situations ended up. Sure, they might all blush the same, but what makes them feel as if they have butterflies in their stomachs or having a burning rage to even basic embarrassment all varied in helped sell them as different people more than a change in accessory or hairstyle ever could. The appearance of each of the sisters was well done, as though they are identical, each will have unique hairstyles and features to help distinguish themselves, like Miku's headphones always being wrapped around her neck, highlighting her timid persona needing to drown out the noise, to Ichika's single earring highlighting her sense for fashion and being the more adventurous of the siblings, as seen by other things that she likes to wear, to how Yotsuba will always wear her ribbon even when she bathes, as bubbly persona needs something like that to tie her image together, even if characters like Futaro call it an eyesore. The way each stylized their hair and what they accessorized with helped sell their personality at a first glance, and as you get to know them, their looks just make more sense, as they are all real girls with their own preferences, and even if they stylize their hair the same, they truly are quite different at the end of the day. Now, the art isn't always the best and can take noticeable dips, but the designs for all the characters were fairly expressive, and with how comedic the series tended to be, dips weren't that big of an issue, as unlike with many harems that want the focus to be on the looks of the girls, the personality mattered far more here, and even when it's at its lowest visually, it's still fairly interesting to view, as the sloppiest of shots really aren't all that bad for a harem anime standard. Sure, compared to the manga's art, you might say what the hell happened, but a drawing versus moving image shouldn't be comparable, as there's way more pieces at play in anime production. The animation is minimal at best, but because of the style of story this is, with as much talking it has, movement wasn't needed as much as many anime out there. So there's a fair amount of still frames and simple movements, with the focus being on mouth flaps rather than anything else really being animated. And at times it can be distracting by how little something is truly moving. Typically when something moved very little, the art did hold it together, as the staff made sure scenes like these were pretty to look at while being a tad expressive. But with the overall body language for the characters and well-executed comedy, it does hold an episode together when the visual production takes a noticeable nosedive, as you can feel emotion through the animation with the characters' bodies, with shifts in style and animation going above and beyond for jokes. So when the two most important areas to the story, that being the relationships and the comedy, have enough care put into them, it helps keep the visuals afloat even if visually it's nothing technically impressive. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't enjoy the general aesthetic to Quintuplets, as it was quite cute. The quality of the Japanese cast is quite stunning. Usually you'd be able to tell what a character would sound like based on the initial image of the female in any harem, as sadly most are pretty bare bones. But the casting scene here for all the characters really get into their performance, allowing for scenes to feel rather genuine. When characters are making life difficult for the other, you feel as if the actors are really getting into their roles to sell themselves as what's happening currently on screen. It really does matter to them, and a scene isn't as disposable as you first thought, since it seems to matter to this character. A guy like Futaro has his work cut out for him. 5 sisters he has to tutor, and they have them all pass their exams, else he'll be fired. Only one at the start is down to study with him, and she has a short attention span. The pure frustration and annoyance heard in his voice truly sells this dynamic, with the sisters all delivering their lines in distinct ways matching their character writing one for one, letting them shine in this beautiful light. Now generally with anime such as these, I'd want to watch in an English dub, as with many harems the quality of the acting isn't that important, as the scenes they are acting for really are quite basic. With Quintuplets, I found myself really invested in all the characters' stories, and to have great acting match their character writing really caught me by surprise. But what's even more shocking is how I'd go as far to say that all the sisters and Futaro have equal quality when it comes to their actors, where usually one or more would fall behind. The OST is fascinating, as if you listen to it by itself, I find it to be impressive on nearly every level with a good amount of variety. But when I watched this anime, I didn't really notice the music past an episode here and there. But thinking back, I don't think that's an issue. When the music is most noticeable, it's in the emotional heavy scenes where characters have a falling out or someone is falling in love, the romantic and dramatic scenes. The rest of the time, the music is eating away in the background as to not interfere with the dialogue, but provide a comfy atmosphere to the scene at hand. So if you listen to the soundtrack by itself, you might be surprised and think, I wonder why they didn't use this track, when in actuality they did, but they used it at the appropriate moments with the proper levels, so the dialogue and music meshed in the way that it should. Remove the music and scenes would feel a lot more basic, but add the music back in, and even if you can't hear it as clear as in other scenes, it makes certain moments pop all the better. At first I thought the soundtrack was fine, but when I listened to it in full and went back to check past episodes, I really came out to appreciate the balance of music and voice acting quite a lot. I don't watch many harems these days. I grew out of them long ago, and the only one I keep up with is the long-running franchise Monogatari due to its unique style. But once in a while I'll see a clip or two that catches my eye, and with how many funny scenes I kept seeing pop up on social media with Quintuplets, I had to give this one a chance, and I'm so happy I did. Will this be a harem anime that turns someone who hates the genre into a fan? I don't think so. It still is a harem at the end of the day. But is it a good anime that succeeded at what it went for while trying something new? I believe so. This is a wholesome romance story where the focus is on a respectable and hilarious main character who is trying to pay off his family's debt, while struggling with the most complex group of sisters imaginable. And as they open up to him one by one, you learn about each of them on a deep enough level that they come across as people and not a harem object. Sure, they might all fall in love with him by the end, but the journey to get there is pretty refreshing and quite unique when comparing it to other anime in this same genre that just let everyone fall into the main character's lap, where here the relationships actually develop and feel earned for genuine reasons. If you enjoy entertaining anime that's goal is to make you laugh, be wholesome, a little dramatic with a sprinkle of romance to tie it together, then look no further than the Quintessential Quintuplets. I award this anime my seal of approval, and I hope to see another season in the future, as elsewise I might just have to check out the manga, as honestly I'm pretty invested in the story at this point in time. But that's all for this review. Be sure to let me know your thoughts on the series or the video down in the comment section below. Remember to leave a like if you did enjoy, and subscribe if you happen to be new around here. Lastly, there's my Patreon if you want to go the extra mile and help support what I do even more. But until next time everyone, please take care, and you all have a good one.